As I said, you know this area well. It's prone to flooding. It's not the first time this has happened, but why is this time a bit different?
Well, it's certainly the biggest flood I think we've seen since 1961. In fact, they were talking about the river height being 13 metres above sea level, above river level. To put that, though, into context, the largest flood they'd recorded here back in the 1800s was actually nearly 20 metres. So you look at the river down there and you think it's still a fair way. We would have been well underwater. The buildings around us certainly went. But this is certainly a dangerous one, at least on par with what we had back in 1990, 1961, they seem to say, which means that those who lived through that are now towards the back end of their lives. Many people moved into the Hawkesbury. They haven't been through a flood like this. And the Hawkesbury River is actually extraordinarily dangerous when it's flooding. There's 5 tributaries which come into the Hawkesbury. So while it might look like the water's moving downstream, there's a lot of rivers further downstream which are contributing. The Macdonald, the Colo. At the moment, the Colo is higher than the Hawkesbury. So that's coming in at a much higher rate, which is causing a backlog of water. It can't get out. And that's when we start to see this flooding across the alluvial floodplain at the moment. The water can't get out, and we'll continue to see that water coming in for the next few days. So even though you might have blue skies at the moment, there's more rain forecast tomorrow, there's every chance we could see the river still rising in some areas, and even further downstream at Sackville, where we were yesterday, and we talked to the community. They're looking at a peak, a tidal peak around 9 o'clock this morning. So they're not out of the danger yet. There's still a lot of concern about river communities. They've been absolutely smashed, and people have talked about how quickly the flood water has come up here. When Warragamba Dam opens its floodgates and lets the water out, some people talk about you've got a couple of hours to get home from school. I remember being at the local school here, and they'd say the dam's open, you've got to get home now. The buses would come and you've got to get back across that waterway. And there's also the danger now. You've seen a lot of communities being built around here which have changed the nature of the runoff. So water's coming up faster in areas that it once wouldn't have. People are angry, people are concerned, they're upset, and many people, as we spoke to yesterday, are still very scared.
Sydney's Hawkesbury River raging like an inland sea. Aerials and antennas left to tell you where houses and caravans once stood. The faces of those who lived here etched in shock. 4 days ago, Sackville was known more for its water skiing. But when Warragamba let loose, the water and weather smashed them and their owners' dreams. Too rainy for airlifts, beach rubber duckies dashed here to the bush to save lives.
You don't often get to the river, people.
No, rivers are sort of an unfamiliar territory for us, but we're happy to help out wherever we can.
The water out there, more like a vortex.
Very dangerous with the power lines. We're actually lifting power lines, would you believe, to get the boat under them. A lot of turbulence, and there's just masses of trees and tanks and drums.
This family saved twice, once by rescue crews, then again after their rescue boat capsized in a moment of pure hell.
The boat that capsized had rescuers on it and a family that we were bringing back to safety. The waters are very treacherous out there, and accidents happen.
Search is eventually cancelled, but not before at least 10 were brought to safety. At McGrath's Hill near Windsor, locals though fume, not about the river, but runoff. As urban infill changes the land, Peter Levy has seen a flood or 10. She's so worried, she's been stocking items in her roof.
Places are being filled. If you've got a bowl of water and you keep putting dirt in it, where's that water going to go?
Her point's simple.
This is a hell of a lot more water than should be here.
Neighbour Terry Kirkpatrick agrees.
It's hard to describe because we've never, even in the big time, or the reasonable floods, we only sort of get a little creek out there, And
everywhere roads are cut off, vehicles left where they've stopped. At Moralia, Nellie Bruce waits.
You've lost a shed down here, you've lost a tractor.
Shed, tractor, all our fencing.
And the ute. Many locals won't so much remember the flood height as the flood damage. This house isn't beside a major river, just a local creek. Now there's floating gas bottles, refrigerator, sofa, pool table, even a running machine. They say there wasn't enough time to get out what they wanted, just what they needed. At Pitt Town, the water covers a turf farm and a year's income. Perhaps the biggest scramble has been to save animals. These strangers uniting on Facebook to steer cattle to safety. Because those who live here aren't just river people, they're good people, who now wait for the clean-up to begin. Jonathan Lea in the Hawkesbury. Sky News.